lucru mereu. Dan. Dan Arnaut. Mai este platforma, și Vitalia este prezent aici, CPR, eu și Cico, era Aliona pe undeva Țurcanu. Aici, da. În ultimii 2 ani s-au făcut foarte multe activități, s-au studiat exemple din diferite țări, ca Lituania, Letonia, Croația și altele, s-au creat parteneriate, s-au făcut întâlniri cu instituții, cu Ministerul Culturii, cu Agenția de Proprietăți Publice, cu deputați, cu alți activiști și alte ONG-uri pentru a crea această campanie de advocacy. Și în același timp a fost cartografiată partea legală în ceea ce ține de parteneriatul public-civic și s-au cercetat necesitățile societății civile. Concluziile la toate aceste cercetări le puteți găsi pe pagina web a coaliției. Am organizat toate aceste organizații, inițiative, acest laborator, având mai multe obiective. În primul rând, să discutăm și să înțelegem complexitatea termenului de parteneriat public-civic și cred că discuțiile de ieri ne-au arătat cât este de complex, cât mai avem de învățat și cât mai avem de discutat despre asta și să identificăm care sunt riscurile și oportunitățile în Republica Moldova. Un alt obiectiv este să promovăm acest concept, pentru că dacă noi avem dificultăți în a-l înțelege cumva uniform, cu atât mai mult cei din exterior sau factorii de decizie tot au asemenea dificultăți. Totodată, în cadrul acestui laborator, vrem să venim cu comentarii și propuneri și modificări legislative, dar nu doar. Și nu în ultimul rând, vrem să creăm o rețea de persoane, de organizații, de instituții care promovează acest concept, care discută despre dificultățile cu care se confruntă și cu care putem să convingem autoritățile că noi avem nevoie de un parteneriat public-civic care este reglementat și în legislație. Ce s-a întâmplat ieri? Ziua a început cu prezentarea lui Anatol Albin, care a făcut și cartografierea legală, a explicat ce înseamnă termenul de parteneriat public-civic, a explicat care este diferența de un parteneriat public-privat și care sunt riscurile și oportunitățile în Republica Moldova. O să menționez doar câteva dintre beneficiile menționate ieri, și anume menținerea și conservarea infrastructurii publice existente, revitalizarea infrastructurii publice, partajarea adecvată a riscurilor între parteneri, investiții directe în infrastructură, servicii de interes public și în capitalul uman și, nu în ultimul rând, introducerea modelelor inovative de utilizare a experienței societății civile. În cadrul discuțiilor de după am accentuat faptul că nu există un model unic de parteneriat public-civic, că fiecare țară, și nu doar fiecare țară, dar fiecare oraș poate să aibă modele diferite și că parteneriatul public-civic este mereu ghidat de interesul public, care s-a discutat, care are mai multe aspecte, dar în principal faptul că vrem să valorificăm patrimoniul existent și infrastructura publică existentă, pe de-o parte, și în același timp să apreciem și să oferim condiții societății civile care oferă și servicii publice și protejează democrația și îndeplinește o mulțime de roluri în societatea noastră. A urmat apoi o discuție cu reprezentanții de la guvern, de la Parlament, cu societatea civilă locală și cu cea națională și am înțeles că Parlamentul și Guvernul sunt deschiși spre această inițiativă, dar că urmează să fie mult mai documentată, mai discutată și consultată. Domnul Guneaev, reprezentantul de la Ministerul Culturii, ne-a adus chiar și câteva noutăți și o să le menționez. În primul rând a reiterat faptul că guvernul este deschis spre conlucrare cu societatea civilă, că trebuie să existe mult mai multe persoane implicate în procesele decizionale și ne-am spus că vor fi mai mulți bani în fondul de cultură, mai mulți bani din fondul de cultură vor fi redirecționați pentru restaurarea patrimoniului și se gândește o restructurare a acestui fond, astfel încât amenziile care vin din încălcările și daunele, prejudiciile aduse patrimoniului să ajungă în acest fond al culturii. Al doilea lucru nou care l-am aflat este că Ministerul Culturii împreună cu Agenția Proprietăți Publice face o analiză a clădirilor publice din centrul istoric, urmează să selecteze 10-15 clădiri și să fie cumva destinate, da, unui parteneriat public-privat care să aibă destinație de turism sau destinație socială și eu sunt sigură că noi în continuare avem foarte multe întrebări la acest subiect și la acest proces și sper că o să discutăm eventual și cum ne implicăm în această monitorizare și în această inventariere. Nu mai am mult. Colegul meu, Andrei Lutenco, de la Centrul de Politici și Reforme, a povestit despre rolul societății civile și care este conlucrarea cu guvernarea. A menționat că sunt premize atât politice cât și juridice pentru acest parteneriat public-civic și am mai menționat și vreau să reiterez acest lucru că autoritățile adesea și foarte rapid găsesc soluții eficiente când este vorba de business, dar cumva ezită să facă acest lucru când este vorba de societatea civilă. Și cumva în cadrul panelului am încurajat toată lumea ca autoritățile să cunoască mai mult și să înțeleagă mai mult despre rolul societății civile în comunitățile noastre, atât la nivel local cât și la nivel național. Totodată vreau și să menționez că nouă ne este dificil adesea să explicăm ce înseamnă un spațiu civic. Noi doar spunem că civic space is shrinking, dar noi nu putem până la capăt să explicăm acest termen complex. Dar am spus că el poate începe cu un spațiu fizic, în care noi putem să lucrăm, în care noi putem să ne întâlnim și de care putem să avem grijă. De la Bălți am avut o istorie nu prea încurajatoare despre centru de tineret, dacă nu greșesc, care de fapt închiriază de la privați și are o relație nu prea bună cu autoritățile publice locale și ceea ce mi s-a întipărit este faptul că legislația noastră, mai ales în ceea ce privește ce ține de ONG-uri, are foarte mult cuvântul poate, adică poate să ofere spații, dar poate și să nu ofere. Și asta creează foarte multe interpretări, mai ales la nivel local, așa cum spunea și se menționa ieri, dacă se face același proiect în 5 localități, o să avem 5 proiecte diferite. Și nu e vorba doar de context, e vorba de anume cum interpretează autoritățile locale aceste parteneriate. La riscuri, s-a menționat despre faptul că inclusiv societatea civilă poate să fie un gestionar nu prea de succes și faptul că unele proiecte pot să eșueze, dar aici eu o să accentuez faptul că este ok în primii ani să testăm anumite modele și să eșuăm. Și la beneficii, eu cred că ele sunt deja evidente și noi vom discuta mult în cadrul acestei zile despre beneficiile parteneriatului public-civic. S-a lucrat în 2 grupuri de lucru, dar nu o să dezvălui ce s-a discutat acolo, pentru că o să avem o prezentare la finalul zilei, dar au fost unele discuții tare aprinse, sincere, deschise și mi se pare că este nevoie de și mai mult timp pentru ele. Și am încheiat ziua cu o sesiune de reflecții despre cum ne-am simțit, despre ce am învățat și am înțeles că a fost util, a fost bine, dar a fost un pic copleșitor, pentru că este foarte multă informație, mai ales pentru persoanele fără background juridic. În același timp, chiar și persoane cu background juridic au spus că tot trebuie de schimbat anumite lucruri și această conversație și acest input este foarte benefic și foarte util. Și mi-a rămas în minte o frază de la reflecție în care cineva spunea că cultura parcă este la noi ca un copil abandonat, parcă are părinți, dar stă în ultima bancă și nimănui nu-i pasă de el. Și cred că multă lume împărtășește acest sentiment, mai ales la nivel poate local. În același timp, din discuții și din reflecții, am înțeles că există deja o rețea de susținere. Există persoane, cum spuneam, din instituții diferite, cu background diferit și există foarte multă voință să aducem un pic de claritate în acest domeniu. De asta, chiar dacă cultura acum este în ultima bancă, încetișor o aducem în lumină, pentru că nu cred că trebuie să fie în prima bancă numai decât, dar trebuie pur și simplu să fie o prioritate pentru autorități. Mersi foarte mult că ați ascultat această introducere. Eu sper că am făcut un rezumat bun, dar dacă este cineva care ține minte vreo frază, experiență, o informație nouă, o informație veche din ziua de ieri, mai avem 5 minute să facem acest lucru. Nimeni?
I have a question. You mentioned then the representative of Ministry of Culture has said that they are waiting for something more from you. What exactly is that? What they are waiting for?
Nu știu dacă exact așa formulasem, dar spuneau că ei au mai multe inițiative în ceea ce ține de restructurarea instituțiilor și fac mai mult spațiu pentru societatea civilă ca să fie la masa de decizii și să fie implicați în diferite proiecte. În același timp a fost cumva un mesaj mai general de la reprezentanții autorităților că acest parteneriat și această discuție nu trebuie să fie deschidere doar din partea lor, dar trebuie și societatea civilă să fie mai activă. Dar asta este mesajul care noi mereu îl primim de la autorități, că societatea civilă trebuie să facă ceva. Dacă cineva mai poate să completeze. Dar asta era mesajul, că există deschidere și că urmează să fie mai multe consultări publice pe diferite platforme. S-a menționat despre faptul că trebuie discutat și cu autoritățile publice locale, cum văd și ei acest parteneriat public-civic, pentru ca în rezultat să ajungem la un draft cât de cât reprezentativ, un draft de lege cât de cât reprezentativ. Alte întrebări? Dacă nu mai sunt întrebări, eu o să rog pe Vitalia Sprânceană să ia microfonul și să modereze următorul panel de discuții și mersi foarte mult.
Da, bună dimineața. Good morning, everyone. I'll switch to English since our panel will be in English. We're a little bit ahead of the schedule, which is good because it leaves us more time for the discussion. And I know that in like the last 15-20 minutes will be us on the panel fighting against your feeling of hunger and so on. So we would like to avoid that as much as possible. Now, like with this round table, in a way, we'll move the discussion a bit away from the civic-public partnership and we'll come back to it. We'll kind of have a more general view on what is this about, in a way to address the political and the philosophical implications of what it means. It's like participation. We'll be talking about participatory democracy, examples of participatory institutions in our region and in other parts of the world, and we'll try to take some lessons, what is working, what is not working. The formal structure of the panel will be like this. First we'll have a lecture about participation, participatory democracy, delivered by Dea. I hope she will manage to fit into around 20-25 minutes. Then I'll have some questions for Dea. And then we'll open the floor, like we'll give you also the opportunity to ask some questions. Then we'll have a short break so that Giovanni from Italy will join us online. And then in the second round, we'll have some very concrete example of participatory cultural institutions, one from Italy and one from Bulgaria. And we'll be discussing how they're functioning, what's their structure, how they're operating in their respective context, what are the lessons, the challenges they're facing, and so on and so forth. So I invite Dea, I invite Vesselin, and I invite Daniele to join me here, or maybe for the purpose of like when Dea delivers the lecture, you can stay there. So it's better not, yeah. I can also sit somewhere here so that I'll not be the kind of the weird presence aside. Yeah. I'll also give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I'll give her the. Okay. I don't need this microphone, so I'll hand it to her so that we have those ones. Yeah.
So you want to steal in some minutes from my interventions, asking me to present myself, huh? But you know how we say in Croatia that the hope dies last, you know. So hopefully I will deliver my keynote in, let's say, 25 minutes. I will do my best. Because of that, although I'm not preferred to sitting when I deliver a keynote or any lecture or presentation, but I will sit here because otherwise it would be really difficult to manage with the presentation without the pointer. Can you hear me? Is there some problem? Oh, with the translation. Okay. Then I will wait. Okay, no problem. No, because it's difficult for me to stay, because there is you will see, you know, I will use the same slide to put the new information. Does it work? It's good. Okay, perfect. So to start from the beginning or not? However, so you asked me to present myself. So I'm coming from Croatia, Zagreb. Originally, I'm from Sarajevo. I work 13 years on the other side of the moon as a public servant, as a director of Cultura Nova Foundation, which is basically public foundation established by Republic of Croatia with the purpose of providing support to civil society organization in contemporary arts and culture. I was the first and the only director till 1st of October, and I decided to step down after my third mandate expire, and it's happened. So now I'm working as a freelance researcher and let's say consultants in a different area of cultural policy, philanthropy and civil society, but starting with the new position of the researcher at the Institute for Development and International Relations in Zagreb in December, basically next week. However, the topic of this gathering is the topic that we open during my work in Cultura Nova Foundation. And I work from really different dimension to approach to this topic. But now I will focus on my intervention and the keynote, trying to deliver you some of the, let's say, background that I found it very relevant for the topic of civil public partnership, that is basically the topic of this gathering. So saying all of that, I will basically start my intervention with talking about participation that basically stands at the heart of addressing the crisis of democracy and also serving as such a great bridge between the ideal of participatory democracy and the mechanism of the participatory governance that basically represent the concept behind the model of civil public partnership that you are focused on, and also for many other models, and some of that I will also share with you just as information. So I will really try through this let's say next 25 minutes to explore a little bit the theory and then to see how we can apply this theory of participatory democracy and the governance in the practices and the policy. So basically starting from the participation, as all of you I suppose know, there is such a long tradition of participation, and it appears it's really various political context, and it's changed over the history. And this changes as a result of change in relations between the state and the citizens, and it's also the results of communication and technology development. And as a consequence of all of these changes, we can state that participation is a very dynamic concept, is not a static or numeric one at all. So this brought us to the shift to participation in all areas. So basically participation appears not only in the political realm, then also we can talk about the participatory product design, participatory classroom, which means that basically participation appear also in education. We can talk about the participatory journalism, participatory arts as well. So there is a really different forms of participation. And somehow we can say that we are living in a contemporary world where participation become imperative, or how I also like to call it, like becoming the new opium for the people. Yeah? So this kind of the proliferation of participation, meaning increasing the numbers of different forms of participation, also brought us to this issue of limits of participation. So from that reasons, it's really crucial to raise the different questions, such as who participate, who decides who will be invited to the party, and also who defines the rule of the games. Because every time when we participate in some process, there is always the rule for that particular game. But the question is, who is behind that rules, who invests that specific rules. So because of all of that, we face in many cases this blurring the line between the participation and instrumentalization. Yeah? Which means that basically, in many cases, the participation is not emancipatory at all. Basically, politicians use the participation to justify their different project and investment that attract numbers of people. At the same time, participation is not always fulfilling. It's just a starting point. But at the end, there is no devoted enough time, enough resources, enough capacity to basically fulfill such a complex process, such as a participation as such. In a parallel, we can also realize that the participation in many cases is not related to the centralization of power in decision-making. So there is no deliberative process and deliberative of power in decision-making. So, consequently, participatory process face significant criticism, and some view participation as a new form of tyranny, mask underlying different inequalities, because it resonates with the previous questions that I asked: who participate, who decided who will participate, and who created the role of the games. In a parallel, there is also the point of view talking about the paradox of participation that basically can devolve into opposite of the participation as such, and through different manipulation and instrumentalization of participation, despite it represent very potent political tools. So just to show you how those particular approach to the participation is become so relevant, I just wanted to share with you at least those two publications that talk about the participation as a new tyranny on one side, or the paradox of participation specifically in the context of popular democracy. From all of that reasons, thinking about the participation from different forms, it's really relevant to look at the ladder of citizens' participation that was coined by Arnstein at the end of the 60s. And it still resonates with all of us. Why? Because it shows us in a very simple visual way that participation could basically, although it represents like a participation, but it's not. Yeah? Because it's a manipulation or therapy. It could be also tokenism, specifically including informing and a consultation that becomes so popular, like public consultation as a popular mechanism in the democracy. And then the high level of participation that's represented by citizens' power, where we can, of course, identify partnerships, delegated power, but specifically citizens' control. And how the ladder I can brought, yeah, sorry. So for all of you who are interested to discover the ladder of citizens' participation and to prove how it's resonate and how it's still relevant for all of us, there is another publication that I wanted to share with you that talk about the learning from the, let's say, Arnstein ladder, and also explore how it is relevant to look at that ladder when we come to the topic of citizens' participation and the public engagement. So basically, participation is like the main legitimacy of democracy today. So if we want to legitimize democracy and to measure how much of democracy appear here or there, one of the first things that we will consider, explore, assess would be precisely the participation. But what we can say about democracy, it's also a very complex concept that basically appear in so many different variations and the forms. Yeah? And today, for the legitimacy of how much of democracy we have and to measure, one of the main aspects is the citizens' engagement or the participation. Yeah? What is the dominance of democracy? The dominance of democracy, hegemonic democracy in the Western world is the democracy that we basically developed after the Second World War, during the Cold War. But unfortunately, it's basically faced the crisis of this traditional hegemonic democracy, because stems from the tension between administrative control over economic and the political decision making on one side, and the increasing demands on the citizens to participate in all of these processes. And this basically somehow initiated different actions to explore, to find alternatives to this traditional hegemonic democracy that faced the crisis. And one of that forms or variation of democracy represented by participatory democracy, which is a system of governance that enables community members to have a direct involvement in decision-making process, going beyond traditional model of representation. As I said earlier, that participatory governance represents one of the great mechanisms of ideal of participatory democracy. How this concept of participatory governance is also relevant today, we can prove with so many different publications that address the concept, the theory of participatory governance, but also talk about applying, transferring those theory in the practice and the policy, including also applying participatory governance concept and the theory in the field of culture, with these examples that we did in Croatia, but there is really so many different examples across the continent of Europe and on the global scale. But what is a participatory governance and why it is relevant for your specific practices of civil-public partnership or your intention to implement it and develop in your Moldova context? So it's basically sharing the governance responsibility among different stakeholders and empowering citizens for decision-making on the public issues. And this is the crucial aspect, which means that it brings to the table different sectors, primarily representative of the public sectors on the one side and on the civil sectors on the other side, to discuss and to share responsibility in a governing of something what is in a public interest. Yeah? It could be devoted to different things, public resources, public different problems, public issues, with the idea of finding solution for all of that public problems. But let's look, what does it mean embedding participatory governance in the policy and the practices? First of all, it's very relevant and important to be aware that a participatory governance could be initiated by top-down, which means implemented by different public bodies or international agencies. Like a World Bank, for example, that really implemented a lot of participatory governance across the globe. On the other side, it could be implemented grassroots as a bottom-up initiatives. And when it looks what researchers and scholars talk about that, they make some kind of the distinctions, depends on who initiated the participatory governance. And then they use the governance-driven democratization as a concept for top-down and democracy-driven governance for the bottom-up. But they also says that the top-down basically initiative of participatory governance is primarily driven by neoliberal rhetoric of transparency, good governance, and the open government, while the grassroots initiatives has another kind of the motive behind. So they are basically dealing more with democratic innovation, with the institutional arrangements, which means democratizing politics, economy, and of course, as a result of all this process, democratizing of society in general. When we look on the dimensions of embedding participatory governance in the practice, there is three main dimensions that we have to take into account: temporal, spatial, and practices, which basically respond to the very simple questions: when, where, and how. So basically the question is the impermanence of participatory design. Is it a one-off or regular over the time? When it comes to the spatial, it's the questions where participation is abandoned in the decision making. And I can say that the local level is identified, let's say, as the most conducive because it's the closest to citizens. And there is two really relevant aspects when it comes to the spatial dimension of the participatory governance. The first is the citizens' access to the various decision-making process. And the second is the connections of decision spaces to the broader civil society movements and different social power. When it comes to the practice, it's basically related to the strategy, to some kind of the rules, to the procedures that is necessarily when it comes to the participatory governance. Without the rules and defining the rules, there is no possibility at all to successfully implement the participatory governance in a practice and the policy as well. When it comes to the institutionalization of participatory governance, what does it mean? It basically means incorporation of deliberative activities into public decision making. It's related to the legal constructions, yeah, that is needed for institutionalization of these kind of the practices. And basically it can cover on one side the incorporation of the new process into existing institutions. So basically we can realize that there is some institutions that we want to make it democratizing them, implementing this kind of concept. Or we can basically want to develop the new institutions based on this approach of participatory governance. But what is also very important to have in mind, that it's not necessarily reformative or revolutionary, yeah, but it should be based on some kind of experimental approach, testing, yeah? So trying to innovate democracy. When it comes, because it's very relevant for you as you representative, represent the bottom-up initiatives and the grassroots initiatives, it's important to let's say, consider this approach, yeah? And here, the concept of participatory institutional design could very resonate as, let's say, the ideal approach or way of this bottom-up initiatives led by civil society movements and organizations. And for that, the crucial thing is to be open-ended engagement. And this kind of open-ended represents this ideal of deliberation. It should be contextually rooted, which means that there is no blueprints. There is no recipe that I can give you. The formula, one-size-fits-all, doesn't work when it comes to the participatory governance. It's important to be flexible in a process, to be very adaptive, to basically, through the process, all the time be ready to change, be ready to revision and to challenge the process and ourselves. Yeah? So in all this approach, the citizens advocate basically for the institutions that offering immediate but also meaningful participatory opportunity. So with this understanding and implementation of the concept of the participatory governance, we can basically identify this great shift from political of resistance towards the politics of participation of citizens that I see as so relevant and important a benefit aspect of the implementing participatory governance into practice, specifically in deficit of democracy that we all as a society and the country, democratic country, basically face. But there is, as I said earlier, there is a different models of democratic institutional innovations based on the participatory governance. And I will share just some of them. The first, it's a participatory budgeting, because basically the participatory governance is a concept coined based on this model that was appear at the end of the 80s in Porto Alegre in Brazil. But there is also some other models that resonate with us and with this concept, such as the citizens' assemblies, collaborative governance, public common partnerships, and the civil-public partnerships in your specific cases. But it's very important to be aware of all challenges of the concept. The first, there is no equal interest in the participation. Stakeholders are not familiar with the idea of participatory governance in the same scale, and there is basically lack of understanding of the terms and the concept, and in that way, or as a consequence, distrust, not only between all stakeholders that are involved with different motivation and different interests in the process, then also distrust on the concept that we can't understand. And in that sense, I would say that the capacity building is the starting point. Huh? And at the end, there is also the challenges of seeing problems without perceiving the solution, and specifically in the public sector. And this is what we realized through our research conducting in Croatia context and implementing participatory governance in the practice. So basically, we can state that participatory democracy as such, and then of course participatory governance as one of the mechanisms, it's really complex. I heard also that this is like one of the conclusion of your yesterday discussion, and I suppose also that you are completely aware from your own practice. Why? Plenty of that challenges, some of them I already shared, but there is also risk of a bureaucratization and a professionalization through the process, formalization and dominance of individual actors that basically started to dominate through the whole process, that bring them to the clientelism, cooptation also of by powerful actors that limit inclusivity, that limit this open-ended to the newcomers and so on. And this also brings a techno-managerial approach that undermine non-expert knowledge and marginalize basically the knowledge of the citizens. And I will not repeat again this paradox and the tyranny of participation that basically masking the inequalities and also somehow manipulated the whole process. So to preventing all manipulation and the cooptation requires basically implementing the idea of democratizing democracy, yeah, through the democratic innovation, learning by doing, self-reflections, just to mention some of them. But talking about so challenges and complexity of the concept, it's crucial to come back to the benefits. The reason why we insist so much on the participatory governance and participatory democracy in the context of our reality. Some of the benefits is the solution for the erosion of democratic vitality and the political passivity that we all face. It's also helped to make this shift from being passive observer to become active decision makers, and also the centralized of power structures and decision-making process. It brings the individual liberty with the collective decisions because we participate in some collective process and created so many solutions for the public problems. And the solutions for this political passivity that I mentioned earlier is because we make this shift for being passive to become very, very active. Looking on the core positive impact of the participatory governance, we can identify different positive impacts for stakeholders, for the policy, including cultural policy, but also for the society in general. So we can say that participatory governance improves the dialogue, cooperation, and participation in decision-making of different stakeholders, that as a consequence, rise the mutual trust among all of them, increase their governance capacity because they are all responsible for the governing, and affiliates basically citizens, experts, policymakers, all involved stakeholders in different institutional formats. When we look at the policy realm, we can identify this ability to test, to experiment with the new governance model that we desperately need in a current system. And it's also provide a wider access to diverse social groups, specifically the marginalized, vulnerable groups, and also increase the transparency in achieving the goals and the results of different public policy. Of course, not to forget to mention this distribution of the public resources in a much more appropriate way that increase also attention to the public needs and interests because the participatory governance is dealing with the public issues. And in a general, we can improve the democratic process through this kind of the approach. And for the society, it's relevant to talk about the inventory of the new participatory mechanism that basically foster the new values, interactions, relations, and engagement. And as such, it basically promotes the coexistence and the civic progress and induce really positive social change and the transformation. And finally, not to forget to mention the preservation of public resources for the future generation instead of leaving all of this wonderful public resources behind. So to conclude, from all of that reasons, despite the complexity, despite of potential of manipulation and co-option, and to turn to the completely opposite. I call to the actions of implementing participatory governance as a framework for inclusive growth across all sectors that basically create all of us such a great opportunity to sit together and to make this shift from being very resistant to change to the dialogue and exchange for the future generation. And I will stop here. Thank you so much. I'm almost.
Yeah, I don't know how to do the arrangement. Do you want on the sofa or?
Yeah, I can move because I don't need any more. Hopefully. Oh, good that I will sit.
Okay.
We have two. Okay, perfect. Do you prefer to stand?
Uno.
Okay.
No, I was just checking the microphone. Thank you for this short but generous overview of participation, its pitfalls, challenges. It was really hard and difficult for me to disagree with you, with what you said.
Oh, that's good.
Because in a way you were, at least like I'm speaking now for myself, you're preaching to the choir, let's put it this way, like to the already convinced. And it's where, and your your lecture was good to kind of introduce us to a more general conversation about the crisis of democracy that we're experiencing right now. It's really part, and in this way, this panel, this roundtable is part of a global, in a way, discussion. These discussions are happening everywhere, and it's good that you tackled this concept of participation, which sometimes was presented to us as a kind of a silver bullet, a key to, like the magical key to solve the problem of democracy. We know it's not working this way. As it happens, I have a lot of experience in kind of failed participatory institutions in Chisinau and failed participatory practices. I can tell you a lot, and probably the local audience knows, for example, about our failed experiment on participatory budgeting. We succeeded to implement it at the level of the city, but then the city just appropriated it and started to implement it in its own way, to the extent that we're no longer interested in participating in that. We're no longer kind of feel the owners, and that process in a way doesn't represent us. To the pitfalls of participation that you added, I can mention also like the very important question on who decides what are the topics on which we kind of participate. And there is this paradox in Chisinau, for example, and I guess not only in Chisinau, that, for example, for the participatory budgeting, you decide about like less than 1% about the general budget of the city. So the general budget is just being allocated in a total non-transparent way, while we have this small thing, participatory budgeting, which is then narrowed down every year. The city hall would give you a list of topics for interventions. So it's basically through participatory budgeting, even you're not allowed to, in a way, decide on what projects or on what things, on which things you want to work. So we can continue this discussion. I totally agree with what you said. I agreed also with the solutions. And my questions would be, I have several questions. One of them is, in a way, very general. And as much as I would be convinced by you about the benefits of meaningful and done correctly, let's put it this way, participation, then like my question for you generally would be, what would be the motivation for public institutions, for state at the local and central level, to embark in this process of creating participatory institutions? Because as I said, like we as civil society, we're advocating for that, where we know and we feel the benefits. We feel disempowered by the current state of Moldovan democracy. And we want more participation, but sometimes we feel that we're knocking at closed doors. And like, in the examples where there have been, for example, where have been some participatory institutions creating and put to work, as far as I know, there have been some willingness from local governments that were representing movements from central government sometimes, or at the regional level, as you mentioned, like in Brazil. But then how do you convince the state, like the state basically, in a context such as Moldova, where you have a lot of distrust? I don't know if it's the situation the same in Croatia, for example.
Almost the same.
Like you have a
Not
high level.
completely the same, because it's yeah, but it's changed.
You have a high level of distrust of citizens
Of
towards the
course.
authorities, and you
And
have a
vice
reluctance.
versa.
Yeah, and you have, and vice versa, and you have a reluctance of governments at the local and central and regional level to engage the citizenry. So how do you make that entry? How do you convince the institutions, state institutions, to embark in a process of designing participatory governance?
Yes, so I would say that there is a really different tactics. Why I'm using the words tactics, that I basically make a differences between strategy, strategical approach and tactical approach, which according to the CERTO strategy we use in a, let's say, a very positive environment, and tactics how to reach the enemy. That somehow we can, you know, identify all this division between the sectors as such a huge polarization among all of them, including what you mentioned, having this really distrust between different stakeholders or actors, not to use this neoliberal terminology so much, yeah, and to come to the sociology, as far as I know, this is your background. So it could be used really different tactics, but it really depends on the specific context. As I said, there is no recipe, there is no blueprints that you can basically move it. But one of the crucial from our experience in Croatia, crucial aspect is to become political fact. Yeah, which means that you become so relevant to legitimize all the process that you initiated and that you try to implement, and try all the time to be active, to be proactive, and try to initiate a different kind of the dialogue, and to make a proposal, not stop on the knocking on the door, although that doors stay closed. Yeah. So basically, what makes such a great change in Croatia, it's precisely that independent cultural scene, how it call it itself. I prefer, as I work 13 years in a public sector as a director of the public fund, I prefer to call it like civil society organizations, contemporary arts and culture. And in that, using that terminology, I didn't have to invest so much time explaining, oh, what is the independence cultural scene? Independence from what? You know, so this kind. But doesn't, yes, state money, public money, private money, doesn't matter. And then it comes to all the list of arguments that explain. However, to come back, so what make these changes? Because a lot of civil society organizations created the networks, alliance, yeah, of the organizations that started to share their interest and motivation to basically start to deal with the cultural policy frame, to improve the system, and then started to address different impediments in the system that basically didn't change, although we changed our political and economic system and became from social communist country to democratic and capitalist country. But we didn't do any reform of the cultural policy that basically still 30 years after almost work in the same way, with some cosmetic changes and advance, including Cultura Nova as establishment of the new institutions that was basically established based on the long advocacy process led by civil society organization. And after 7 years of advocacy, the Republic of Croatia finally decided to establish Cultura Nova. Before that, the city of Zagreb decided to establish Pogon based on civil-public partnership. As a result of many protests against the mayor of the city of Zagreb, that was basically initiated by the civil society organization operating in Zagreb and creating such a huge coalition with other organizations from other fields, youth primarily, and then with the green activists and organizations and so on and so on.
Yeah, I remember I was in Zagreb and the independent cultural scene was collecting signatures to stop the concession of the highways. And it was one of these acts when it was behaving as a political actor, and it was a puzzle in a way for us.
It's a puzzle. It's
originally
always a puzzle. So there is no one things, you know, one conference like this, one protest, one knocking on the door, one call, one saying one letter, saying one proposal. No way. So there is so different puzzles that you have to put together, specifically in the context that there is no, let's say, a sensibility for you as a representative of civil society or for this kind of the practices because they think that they know the best?
I did not have originally this question, but since we addressed the issue of how to convince the state to embark in participatory institutions, I'll address the other side of the question, meaning the citizenry, like how to engage the citizenry. We don't lack examples of bad practices of engaging citizens. For example, I'll give you an example in Chisinau. As I said, like the budget of the city is totally adopted in a non-participatory way. But then the citizens sometimes are being asked, for example, to discuss and to decide on important issues. For example, should we paint the trees in the spring, like this white, I don't know how it's called, but should we do that or not? And that's kind of gives you the impression that participation is not a serious thing in a way for the citizens. They feel that there is nothing at stake if we participate. So how do you engage the citizenry? Again, and I'm not talking, I don't want to have a general discussion. I would like it to sound very close to your context, like what has worked in Croatia to engage the citizens, knowing that we have this kind of depoliticized, more or less, like people that show sometimes only on the elections, and they don't have the avenues to participate, they don't know how it's done, they don't know the purpose of it, the use of it, and so on and so forth. So what are some successful examples of engaging the citizenry?
So there is the whole, if I may express in this, the whole science that is dealing with the community-based design. And there is like a profession, like being community manager, you know, how to attract, how to dress, how to involve people. The first is a respect. I would say it's a starting point, but it's really, in many cases, something that is completely disappear, you know, that we always understand citizens as a passive, as not very well informed, not very well educated, someone who do not deserve our attention. And basically, I will now consider myself not as a part of this civil movement, but as a citizens, sometimes, you know, we also lose this connection with the citizens, basically. And this is something what is very often shared within the cultural scene, independent one in Croatia, that basically together with the public institutions and all other actors, cultural professionals, professionals, they are basically mirroring themselves with the peers, with the other experts, with the expert community. They stop care what the citizens means. And because of that, we started to develop this concept of audience development. Come on, you know, again, with a very objective approach to the citizens. Yeah, so this is the first things I would say. So the respect of the citizens and their different perspective, needs and interests. But then how to show this? It's first, you know, to creation and dealing with the time. Because, you know, the questions of time, it's a really crucial question. So when basically citizens can participate? Can they participate at 12? At the noon? On a Monday? Come on. Or at 8, you know? When someone invited me to come to the opening of exhibition at 8, of being a mom of really small kids, I want to kill someone, you know? So this is like, I make some kind of the radical statement, you know, I will not kill anyone, don't worry. But you know, so the very simple things. I remember when we implemented this participatory governance project in Croatia, that we as a Kultura Nova, that was my time in Kultura Nova, was basically asked by our beneficiaries. They came to us with demands like, okay, you provide the grants, institutional grants. We provided in that time the grants for establishing and implementing the local advocacy platforms to make changes in the local scale, and we supported a lot of civil public partnerships across the country. They realized that the money that we also limited with the budget, it's not enough for them, and that we can help them as a public institutions in many other way. With the capacity building, with the research, with the increasing visibility, with the connected them on the international community, and so many other things. And we accepted this challenge, we created this project and really made such a great progress and change that included capacity building, that basically address public sector, civil sector, but also citizens. And we change our approach to citizens in every location when we work, based on specific context. Just for example, in Pula, we discussed with the civil society organization in Droic. The Droic is the biggest building in Pula, and basically it's the building that gather 100 civil society organizations in different fields, including culture, that is developed based on the idea of civil public partnerships, because they use the public infrastructure, they involve the city in the governing structure, and so on and so on. We asked them, okay, how to bring the citizens, because they are situated in the residential area. And they said, like, through the different workshops that is completely not dealing with the participatory governance. Like, let's organize the workshops for preparing the furniture for the garden because the summer is coming. Invite citizens, they will come and then mingle with them and started to talk very like unofficial, like, what do you think about this, what do you think, did you ever heard like and then through and you have to repeat this kind of the engagement, you know, and to find the way how to approach them. In Dubrovnik, we did completely another things. We address the students, pupils in a school, because across Lazareti is the place, the complex of participatory governance model in Dubrovnik, is a school, secondary school. And they realized that the kids from that school never come to their programs. Why? They wanted to know. So then we invited them, we organized some workshops, we talk with them about what bothering them. So, you know, this very like, you know, different kind of options and different activities that we if we are the one who implemented the practices of participatory governance, that it's our responsibility as well, and to be always open to different solution, but also different interest and different motivation, which is not easy peasy at all to deal with.
Yeah, I'll add another responsibility on us in a way, the responsibility of translating complicated issues. You mentioned the experts, and sometimes people feel that they're being affected by some decisions that they don't understand, and the explanation of those decisions is being left to the experts. We've had a lot of good examples where non-expert citizens, when participating meaningfully, have succeeded to radically transform like societies. Like it comes to my mind the example of Iceland, where they were just kind of drawing a lottery and picked random citizens, and then those citizens with the advice.
Democracy.
Yeah. So one of our initiatives in Chisinau, again a failed one because of lack of resources related to the municipal budget, again in a way, because this example kind of gives me, it's multifaceted and gives me many talking points. There was this thing that we're asking for openness of and transparency of the and kind of public debates around the budget. So the municipality would in a way say like, okay, and they will release the budget, but they will release it in such a form like as to be read only by accountants and economists, like various numbers that to a random citizen which is with no financial education doesn't mean anything. And we've seen examples, I've seen one in Poland, the other one in Netherlands, when we're trying to do in Chisinau, to translate these complex numbers into simple figures. So for example, like instead of saying like to the transportation and a lot of these codes, you just say like this year is bigger and it goes there. For example, the taxes, this and that and that. So translating that kind of helps citizens also to be able to participate. And we sometimes feel, we see the estrangement of alienation of people from whatever we call democratic process because they don't understand it, because we don't bother to explain it to them. But I'll ask you the last question, and then I'll open the floor like for others to ask you also questions. To go back to our discussion or to the topic of this gathering, of this panel, like, do you have some successful examples of participatory institutions in the fields of culture in Croatia? What are the challenges? What are the good practices? Like, what makes them succeed or fail? Because I think it's a very relevant conversation for us now, because we're kind of just embarking on this road, and to know not only the promises that are ahead, but also the pitfalls and the dangers that lurk.
Mm-hmm. So there is basically a lot of successful and let's say challenging practices. At the same time, there are success, but also face with so many challenges or problems. Let's call it in proper terms. The first one is a pogon, of course, that basically represent the only institutionalized practice of civil public partnerships. I suppose you had, I heard you had a presentation of Pogon, so many of you are already familiar with this example, I suppose, so there is no need to explain. I see a lot of nodding, so I suppose that I just in a brief. So it's basically, Pogon celebrate 15 years of existence just this year, and publish a big monography of 15 years of Pogon, including really different success, but also not so many of them as well. And it was established as a institutions that shared ownership between the city of Zagreb on one side and alliance of civil society organizations, Operation City on the other side. The city of Zagreb gave to this arrangement the venue, which is the former industrial factory, and this is one of the biggest challenges, because they gave this this venue, which is not basically renovated and adapt to the different needs. And it's not safe. This is one of the main point with the dead buildings. And this struggling and challenging of being and using this public resource in these circumstances and conditions really represent the biggest challenge for Pogon. So, however, the city of Zagreb gave the infrastructures, gave also the money for the employees, and also for the, let's say, operational costs, electricity, some office materials, some crucial equipment, and so on. On the other side, the operations city provides the program through their members, but also non-members, because they wanted to stay open-ended. Yeah, which means that they should be not elitistically close, and to overcome this challenges of domination of one actors or some, let's say, actors that have this kind of the position. So this is basically in a nutshell what the Pogon is, established in 2008 after years of advocacy process, including the big manifestation of Operation City. That was my time when I worked for the civil society organization. It was 2005 that we started to organize the Urban Festival. That was the festival that I initiated with my friends, really almost in the last century. And we, every year we organize this festival, but we use the form of festival just as a term, but not in a reality, because we were completely against this festivalization policy. But we said, we will call it festival because this is the way how we can get the money. But then we completely destroy the forms of festivals, organizing the urban festival all through the whole year. We were young, we based on our enthusiasm, volunteerism, and so on. And one year we said we wanted to use the abundant spaces across the city. We established a collaboration with one prominent NGO platforms, 981, and we said yeah, but using all that abundant spaces with our capacity, it's not possible. So, and in a parallel, we thinking all the time, we need a venue, big venue for all of us, so let's show the governance, the local municipality, the mayor, that we have a capacity and resources to provide the program and also to attract the public. And we invited everyone who worked in that period of time in an independent cultural scene to create the big events of 10 days together with us as Operation City. And precisely during that manifestation, we address this needs of having Pogon. In the future, it becomes a Pogon. You asked me about challenges and pitfalls. There is distrust on the side of the politicians as one of really big challenges. And now the challenges is that the people who advocate for establishment of Pogon took the power of the city of Zagreb. And we have the mayor, the former activist. And now, all the time, they have a feeling that they are in a conflict of interest. So they started to completely ignore Pogon and all their needs, not to mention also the fact that the deputy mayor for culture is the first director of Pogon, Emina Višnić, my dear colleagues and friends with whom I established this urban festival, who was also the first president of the board of Kultura Nova. It's so it's the changes of the position can also change your priority, what you will. So this is what Pogon dealing, but still it exists. It's very relevant for the whole Croatia. It's very motivated for many other initiatives that was basically a peer motivated with the success of Pogon. But there is also so many other institutional frame that we created over the years in Croatia that supported all these initiatives. And then, you know, just recently in Hvar, in the small but beautiful islands, some civil society movements realized what's happening in other cities, and thanks to Kultura Nova initiatives, thanks also the money that we got from European Social Fund, like 12 million of euro investing in participatory governance, and then the people who work in a Ministry of Culture started to work on the participatory governance call. It was amazing, you know. So they realized of this possibility. They identify in Hvar one abandoned venue in the city of Hvar and started with organizing different protests and actions on the streets requiring that specific spaces, and they got it. And now they had the spaces in the city of Hvar that is dedicated to whole citizens for using for yoga, for different lectures, workshops, the small kindergarten for the kids, for this and that, really different kind of the purposes, depends on the needs of the citizens, that is really tailor-made.
Yeah, I've heard these frustrations about activists getting into power positions and then in a way not changing things. Also in Spain, we have our small little frustrations here of activists kind of getting into power positions and then not changing anything. And then probably the discussion would be like, it's not enough to want power, but to have kind of a specific, in mind, the vision, like, to either transform the institutions or to understand that you are in power exactly for that, to create, to expand the institutional conditions, to democratize them, because otherwise it's just like you're putting people in pre-established positions and they behave in a way. But I don't want to monopolize the discussion. I want to open the floor now if there are questions from the audience. Want to? Or
we already monopolized,
already
obviously.
Monopolized? Are we late already? Okay, so I declare officially this session over, and then we'll have questions and answers after the second round.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we have a 5-minute break just to check the technology and.
But if not, yeah, I will be here with you through the day. So any of you who are interested to get more or whatever, I'm more than welcome to speak off the records. Thank you so much. Did I thanks to invitation? Thank you.
accept any criticism related to that. So I'd like to invite you to have a discussion around two participatory institutions, one from Bulgaria and one from Italy, with Vesselin Dimov from Bulgaria, from Toplocentrala, and Daniele Maldera from Italia, Cascina Rocca Franca from Torino, and we have online Giovanni Ferrero from the Municipality of Turin. So we will ask for your patience, because we'll have a hybrid discussion with also the involvement of Giovanni online, so some patience is needed. Technology is usually failing us on that. I'll start, since we have Giovanni waiting already for some time. I'll start with inviting Daniele to present briefly Rocca Franca, like in up to 5 minutes, just like what the institution is about, a short, very, very, very short history. Yeah, there are microphones for everyone. You can take one so that I hope all of them are working.
Okay, do you listen to me? Yes. As I told yesterday, I'm Daniele. I come from Torino, and I work in Cascina Rocca Franca. It's a social cultural center in Torino, and I have some slides for showing a bit, not so much, just a bit what are we talking about. Okay. Cascina Rocca Franca was his neighbor house, and he stay in Mirafiori Nord. He's a neighbor in the south of the city. In 2002 was like this. It was an ancient farm, and during 50s and 60s, when the city grew up, it was because Torino is a big city about automotive. Okay, he is till now the house of the Fiat automotive. So in that period, the city really had a sprawl, and there are many farms, ancient farms, involved in the city. That happens that the farmers, the ancient farmers, need spaces, need lands to bring animals, to have more spaces, and they decide to go away, to abandon the farms, and Cascina Rocca Franca was one of these farms. In 2002, after a project called Progetto Periferie, was a project from the city about regeneration, urban regeneration in suburbs. The city decided to buy from the owner Cascina, the ancient Cascina, and to rebuild. And in this period, from 2002 and the opening that was in 2007, so 5 years of renovation in terms of rebuildings, physical rebuildings, but also 5 years in terms of co-creating with people, with community living around there, what about they would like to do inside. So what we do with this place, okay, it's not only a place, it's not only a space, it's a heritage for all the community, and so what we do inside, and they decide together what we do. And now is like this, so a big investment in terms of renovation, physical renovation. now Cascina is the, this is our claim, is everyone's homes, even yours, and is the house, the home for all, but is is not an headquarters for nobody. Okay, you can go, you local association, informal groups, private citizen, NGOs, and the all civil societies can stay inside, can organize, can manage, can do activities, but can't have the headquarters inside. It's not the legal, it's impossible to do that, okay? You can go, you can stay, you can give us your know-how, but you can have your headquarters. It depends. It depends of activities. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends if your activities is open and free for all citizens or not. If your activity is open, without fee, without something to pay for the people, yes, the space is for free for you also. But if you have if you are a close group of you want to pay something to the people, we have a charge, a fee for you. It depends of which space do you want to use, because there are many spaces and with different square meters.
Daniele, if I can interrupt you a little bit, like I'll ask you specific questions on how this functions, what is the structure and so on, but I would like, since we have Giovanni already waiting, in the previous part of the discussion, we were addressing this question or this challenge, how to engage public authorities in creating this type of institution. So I'd like to ask Giovanni, if he's online and if he can hear us, like to answer to us this question, like what was the interest of the Municipality of Torino to engage in this process? What was the logic behind it? What was the push in a way? Because we, in our context, are facing the opposite situation. The government at the central and local level is kind of unwilling to engage in this type of processes. So Giovanni, the floor is yours, and sorry for keeping you waiting for so much.
Hi everyone, and thanks for the invitation. I'm sorry, I don't hear you very, very well, but I think I understood the most important things. First of all, thanks for the invitation. It's a pity I can't be there with you. I can't manage to come to Chisinau. It's really a pity. I'm sorry about that. But I try to answer to your question. Actually, the project, the Cascina Rocca Franca project, it was an initiative started by the city of Turin, by the city municipality. It was the will of the city to create a place like this. As Daniele said before, the project started in the framework of an urban regeneration project in that neighborhood, financed by the European Union, and in a bigger framework of urban policies started by the city of Turin, beginning in the late 90s of the former century and still continuing right now, urban regeneration policies that find that this kind of places open to everyone, like neighborhood houses, are a right way to work on citizens' participation, and on working on collaboration between public administration on the one side, and the third sector organization in a broader sense, from the smaller group of citizens to the big established, NGO. I mean, this kind of project and especially Cascina Rocca Franca in the whole city is maybe also in terms of management the most public oriented is the place in which the presence of the municipality is stronger. We have even some of my colleague works directly in Cascina Rocca Franca. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well. Yeah, thank you. Now I'll turn to Vesselin. I don't want to have this structure where, and I would ask Vesselin to present shortly the organization that he's part of, Toplocentrala from Sofia, Bulgaria, and we don't have a representative of the city of Sofia, but if you could briefly present the kind of short history in the institution, but also in a way a little bit of the institutional history of the organization, how it was made possible, like what was the entry point that, or like what convinced the authorities in Sofia to embark on that?
Okay, I'll try very concretely. It was the year of 2014, and how the interest of municipality met the interest of independent scene. Sofia was a candidate of European Capital of Culture. This opened the Bulgarian politicians, especially the city ones, to the independent scene, like from Europe. And then the independent scene had a very clear need of creating a space, because there was a change in the law of subsidizing the theaters, which made impossible the collaboration between the independent scene and the, because they were subsidized only per ticket of their own production. So we were searching for space, and at the same time there was a long history since the 90s of several unsuccessful attempts to create a space. So we had already some history behind. And the third very important thing is that we put on an international, very important big international network, ITM, meeting that we were organizing in Sofia in 2014. We put the topic, how to create a new space. And we invited two networks with the magical words from Brussels and Berlin. So it was Trans-Europal, which is the network of centers, grassroots centers in ex-industrial urban heritage, and ITM, which is the biggest network in performing arts in Europe. So we were not just like artists who claim a space or want a space. We were Bulgarian artists that have a common voice. It was not only artists, we had urban planners, we had social entrepreneurship, we had all the arts represented in this association, Toplocentrala. And we had the support of foreign cultural institutes and media later, which is very important. So this created this public-civic partnership, which was going on not according to some recipe. It was searching for its spontaneous, positive development. And it took 3 years to create a model, and then official open architectural competition, and then another competition for construction. Everything was happening through the years with many public discussions. There was a magical person from municipality, Malina Edreva. Without her, it wouldn't have been possible, because she had the intelligence and the patience and the femininity, the wisdom to overcome all these problems. So we were working like together with her for all this time. And it happened to open in 2021. So just 2 days ago, we celebrated 3 years. It's a total success, I could say, in the city. And now I'm in the position, actually, you said there is no representatives from city of Sofia. I am such. So I'm in a position like Emina Višnić now. I represent the institution, and I'm often accused by the politicians that I still behave like an artist, like independent artist. I'm a theater director, more than as like institution guy.
And I imagine that artists and activists are blaming you for being the politician or behaving as politician in a way.
Not for the first 2 years and 9 months, but the first critic was received a few months ago in Facebook. And it's another problem because while Toplocentrala was opening, 4-5 other venues closed down because of COVID and different reasons. So now, being so successful, we became very quickly like monopolist, which is not good. So in a way, we created a great venue that is total success and brings this bridge between the different sectors and the different disciplines in the arts and also international collaborations. But at the same time, the situation of independent artists didn't really improve because they have less spaces. They have better space now, but they have less spaces for their work.
Yeah, it's a conversation that we're having now in Chisinau in a way, with the Ministry of Culture willing to create a new center for contemporary art and culture, Universu, where they want to concentrate everyone and to solve all the issues and all the demands that we're addressing, and of course, like this kind of one building that would address all the challenges. Of course, it's really an impossible dream. It will not work. We're trying to oppose it as much as possible. That's our critical stance towards it. We want like the culture to be decentralized and so on and so forth. I would like to ask you both to shortly talk about, because I would like as much as possible to make this discussion also in a way applied and very technical for the people that are really, like here we want to imagine a new a participatory institution. Would like to address, like to ask you, what is in a way the exact structure, governance structure of your institution? Like how is the responsibility divided or shared between the public actors, and as I understand, Vesselin, in your case, it's both the national, at the national level, and the municipality, and then the independent cultural scene. And I would like to ask also Daniele, what is the governance structure, the ways of operating? You could also talk a little bit about, since there was this question, like the conditions of access, who gets and on what conditions, and yeah, we can talk about the financing a little bit later, but yeah.
Yeah, the model. In 2015, we separated the active group on 3 parts, and we created 3 possible models. One was hybrid with a private investor. The other was to create a space only for performing arts, theater, dance, circus. And the third model was to create an open, without private sponsorship, only for all the arts, for independent art scene. And then the mayor chose the third option. And in 2016, we worked together on this model, which was accepted by the city council. And then, at that time, they were talking, we are not creating a new municipal cultural institute. Let's find a new way, let's find something that... and we created this model, which later appeared to be impossible legally. We looked at Pogon, we looked at Teatr Arca in Prague to create a foundation that combines the initiative on the independent platform of organizations and actors and municipality, and this foundation to work only for that center. First 4 years, 70-30, the expenses to be 70 from the institution, 30 from the artists. Then the 5th, 6th, and 7th year, 60-40, and then the 8th, 9th, and 10th year, 50-50. So slowly going to like really equal 50-50 participation. And the example was given by municipality from France. But as you know, in France, they do this 50% with a lot of sponsorship, private. And in our ex-communistic countries, this works probably for football clubs, but not for culture. So we were trying to run off from this model, and we presented this final model, but then the lawyers of our lawyers and the municipal lawyers and then Ministry of Culture lawyers couldn't find a legal way to do that. They worked for 6 months and they couldn't. So then the municipality said, okay, we'll do it as a municipal cultural institute. So they voted it in 2019, the money to be given. The investment was 2.7 million euro to create all this. Not only the renovation, but also the equipment and everything inside. Furniture and da-da-da. And, but we were pressing for the Ministry of Culture to participate too. So at the end of the day, in 2020, Ministry of Culture created, it's a possibility in Bulgaria, Regional Cultural Institute. So now our model is actually the best that can be achieved in Bulgaria as such. Poor ex-communistic country, you know that reality very well. So the model is we have salaries for 50 people. We're quite intensive. We have like 3 events per day. The salaries for the 50 people working there are coming from Ministry of Culture. They're quite fixed for the sector, for the cultural sector. They're not high. For instance, my salary is 1,000 euro per month. It's fixed, so everyone else should have less.
And it's equivalent in a way to the scale that they're using for state employees.
Yeah. And at the same time, for the utilities, for the expenses of the building and production money comes from municipality. And then, because we are the owner of the center is municipality, we are following the municipal structure of financing, which states that centers can keep their income. So all our income from bar, from renting out spaces, from ticketing and all other incomes stay with us, which creates this model quite hybrid between socialism, so we have salaries, and capitalism, that the more we work, the more we are active, the more we can have, we can make in strong months, we can make double salaries, because that we can keep our income and reinvest it or give it as bonuses to people. So in my way, I would strongly suggest you to go for that model. You will save time, because in our kind of country, there is nothing better than that.
With this center of contemporary culture and art universo that the ministry is pushing, they want to just give the building and for everyone to cover all the costs, rents and so on and so forth.
Not enough. Not good enough.
Totally not good enough. And your example is a good one in the sense, like, we usually see this, how to put it, like, in this system, the capitalists are claiming socialism for themselves and capitalism for the others. You've been able to mix them both in a way that, that helps you.
I would just give a very quick example. By the time municipality invested less than 3 million in an ex-heating plant to turn it into a cultural center, they invested 33 million in renovating a railway station. Both projects were realized by a company that is not good enough, so the final result as a construction is bad. There are leakages on the 3rd year in both spaces, things like that. But they receive only criticism for the railway station, and they receive only superlatives from everywhere in Europe. They're proud of just investing 3 million euro in a cultural infrastructure that is so needed and makes so many people happy, and such an activity and such a support of the real democracy in the city.
Our example is very similar in a way, and we call that, and I guess, art washing in a way. Like the money that will go for the creation of this center will come from the selling of the former Republican Stadium. So it's a similar case. They want to avoid criticism for one thing by collecting praise for a thing that they want to do supposedly for the artist. Daniele, the same question to you. What is the structure of functioning of your institution? Yeah.
Okay. Cascina Rocca Franca is managed by a typical foundation in participation. This is the name of this kind of model, and is mixed. There is the public, the level of municipality, not at the national level, not at the regional level. We are talking about municipality, and to the other side, there is third sector in general, so local association and civil society. It was created a board of directors, and inside this board there is the city that is the main partner and the founder of the.
How many representatives of the city in the board?
Okay, in the board there are 5 members, 3 coming from the city and 2 coming from the private sector. About the public side, one is coming from the municipality, one is coming from the intermediate level between the city and the community that in Italy they are called in Torino, sorry, they are called circoscrizioni. There are local districts, and Torino is shared in 8 local districts. So one coming from the level to the major, the other one from the level to the districts. Right now is the president of the district councilor, and the other one is nominated, is named by the mayor. So 3 of them coming from public. So in this way they maintain they still be the main partners in foundation, and the other 2 coming from an assembly is called as Assembly of Participants, and is composed by associations, NGOs, but also private citizens and also informal groups that living in the space and do activities every day inside the space. They meet more or less twice per year, twice. It depends of the years, but they have an assembly, and the assembly has a election to nominate 2 members that stay in the board. So in this way, we have a mixed governance between public and between.
And I imagine that the General Assembly, in a way, selects or chooses the director or the administrator of.
The directors is chosen by the board. By the board. Yes. Also, the president of the foundation is chosen by.
May I add one thing?
Giovanni, we could not hear. Did you want to make a point? Because I was just about to ask you a question. How is, as a municipality, to work with we call it in our context, the independent cultural scene. Understanding that, like Daniele called it, the third sector in Italy, it's like, how is for you as a public authority to engage with this community of sometimes like ephemeral initiatives, group of citizens, NGOs, foundations, and so on? Yeah,
actually, as Daniele was saying, the case of Cascina Rocca Franca is a case in which and the last word is in the hand of the city administration, because it always has the majority in the executive board. For 15 years, the director was an officer of the city of Turin, and now 4 officers of the city of Turin work in Cascina Rocca Franca Foundation. So in terms of the decision making, I mean, the mechanism of decision making is made in the way that the city of Turin, the municipality, has always the last word, because as a contribution to the existence of the Cascina Rocca Franca Foundation, city of Turin puts the use free of charge of the whole building, all the maintenance of the building, all the facilities and equipment. So there's no direct financing in terms of finance, but there's a strong commitment in terms of contribution to the functioning of the Cascina Rocca Franca Foundation. And this doesn't mean that, I mean, of course, there's a strong dimension of cooperation in ordinary activities, in everyday life of Cascina Rocca Franca, with all the local subject, local association, and local stakeholder, which has a key, they are the key of the lively, I mean, mood of Cascina Rocca Franca. I mean, it is also a result of a local policy. In terms of financing, it has to be said also that, as I think Daniele will told you, I mean, most of the revenues come from the cafeteria, restaurant, and contributions asked to local association to the use of spaces. And but an important co-financing comes via the collaboration between the city of Turin and a local charity, which is called Fondazione Compagnia di San Paolo. It is a local charity linked with important bank, but with a strong presence in the city of Turin, that co-finance via a memorandum of understanding between the city and this charity, this foundation, Cascina Rocca Franca, and other neighbor houses. I don't know if I have understood, if I answered to your question. But
you answered it, thank you. I have 2 more questions before opening the stage. One of them is, in a way, the question that I addressed, I asked Dea. When we're dealing with these institutions, where our desire to create participatory institutions, we're engaging the state governments, the local governments. I would like to ask you a question: how do you engage the citizens, and how you, in a way, talk to citizens and answer to the citizens, in the sense that how you serve the needs of the bigger citizenry? Because in a way, it's a bit paradoxical that both Bulgaria and Italy are in middle of this austerity policies, where we have a restructuring of the state, where the state is being forced to cut spendings in various other areas, and sometimes I'm pretty sure it begs this question, where you have faced this question, but what is the reason for you to get this money and not to go in other places? I understand that sometimes usually this is also a populist argument, like, let's give not to the artists but to the children or whatever, but what is in a way, this dialogue that you're having with your larger community, and how do you, in a way, serve their needs, and how do you keep this dialogue with them?
Well, I first want to answer quickly on the previous question about the governance. The director of Toplocentrala has a contract with the mayor, but there is a public expert committee that consists of Ministry of Culture, municipality and local scene, plus Foreign Cultural Institute, plus foreign networks that I told you about, which guarantees that the direction won't be changed. This is very important. And at the same time, Association Toplocentrala that I mentioned before continues to exist. So it also has a voice. We meet them twice a year, both boards. So this gives a kind of back in the society. And one of the reasons this project was successful is that Bulgarians communicated for 5 years through emails, 12 people, 1/3 of them foreigners, so we were communicating in English. This helps a lot. And having foreign people working together also makes Bulgarian work better among themselves and better quality. And how the artists, very important, how the artists can participate. So there is an open call, 1st of September to 31st of October every year, where artists can apply with a ready-made production or for co-production. This means theater, dance, music, visual arts. And then for 15 days, the first 15 days of November, there is a jury, also public. And that's how it's decided 80% of the program for the next year. So for instance, now my job is in the next 2 weeks to program already what is chosen. And if you get into the program, in this 80% of the content, then you don't pay rent and you get 70% of the box office. So what stays for Toplocentrala is 30%. And here we also follow the example of Berlin centers. We do also corporational stuff, we do electronic parties, we do private events, which brings us money, as you know, which is like market money. We don't announce that on the website. We announced only the artistic program, which actually doesn't bring money, it takes money. So these two sectors help each other to coexist, which is, I think, very good. I would also advise it for you. For the other question, how we communicate. Well, with the institutions, we made ourselves unavoidable. So this the Chinese drop, and patience, and communication, insisting on public meetings that are recorded all the time, at least 2-3 per year. And now is another challenge, how to communicate with the audiences, because there is this discontent. We cannot take everyone on board. And since we are one big space, everybody wants to get on board. So it's another problem, but we have a lot of communication, like we have a newsletter, we have blog, we have vlog, we have all kind of like meetings twice a year also with artists to give us feedback. We are trying, it's not easy because to manage the content, which is so much, doesn't leave us much time to talk about the content and talk about future. We are basically very much busy with the now, how to cope with the content now. So I think we can do better with communication with
Okay, if you are talking about engagement in general, not only communication, we have the similar things about your center. I think there is no magical way to do this, and we try to do our best. Could be better, I think. Is never enough. Is not enough. But we try in this way. We try to listen the needs of the people living around the Cascina Rocca Franca. We try to understand what happens around in the city, in the society, in the world. We try to match the cultural institutions and projects and so on. We try to do the best match between the cultural sector and people and community and people living around the area. And then I think there is another thing, and we try to release some power, some sovereignty about our space to the people. Maybe, I don't know if Gianni knows about this, but sometimes we give the keys to private citizens or to informal groups, to associations, because maybe on Saturday or on Sunday the space normally is closed, but in this way they can organize and they can manage activities. But this is a public space, you know, so it's not simple to mix the requests, the demands, the needs, and to give answer. Also give answers in a fast way, because if you give answer 1 year later or maybe 1 month later, it's too late. So we try to stay in how to say, in touch all the time.
I hope that this disclosure that you made will not affect your relationship with the municipality. One last question. One last question before opening the floor for questions from the audience. It would be like, really, I want from you a short answer. We're in different temporalities in a way. I don't like this kind of timeline logic that we are here and you are there and so on. But let's say we're here in Moldova in this moment at the very beginning of an attempt to imagine an experiment, like even not to practice it. Let's say we're at the very beginning. So, and your institutions have already a history of some years. So what would be like 2-3 takes away or 2-3 advices that you would give to our independent cultural scene? And I'll ask also Giovanni to contribute to that. We don't have representatives of the Moldovan city, of the Moldovan municipality, but you as a municipality, what would be, if we would have in the audience somebody from the municipality, what would be the advice that you would give to them for such institutions to be possible and to work well?
Do we have to answer now? Yeah, okay. Listen, my first advice is also an answer to your previous question, how to engage with citizens. Because I would say that our most important resource, what I've learned in many years of working in this field, is that our key resource in terms of engaging with citizens are the person like Daniele. I mean, having person on the field that knows very well what is happening there. I mean, so my first advice is that in order to succeed is to be deeply rooted on what is happening on the field, on what is happening in the neighborhood, in knowing very well all the different stakeholders, what is happening there. I mean, this is the very first key resource you have to have. Otherwise, I mean, what I learned in all these years is that urban regeneration, cultural, social regeneration requires a long-term perspective. So you have to look at participation in the long term, not just deciding, not just putting post-it on a boardwalk in order to decide this or that, but to stay on the field and work with people on a daily basis. In a way, there's, I mean, over time, you slightly change to decide together to doing things together. And doing things together mean that you, the public administration, and the NGOs, the local citizens, the local association, and the citizens, can do something together with you. So yeah, my very first advice, I mean, there are two advice I would say. First, be very patient. Yeah.
Thank you.
Secondly, be very rooted on what's happening.
Yeah, thank you. Daniele or Vesselin?
I suggest to have time for sharing experiences, to listen other maybe stakeholders, to have meeting like this, not also with international people, also inside the city also, because maybe there is someone that has the same ideas, that has the same vision, the same process, and I think that sometimes compromise is not bad. Sometimes compromise, okay, the word compromise is not a very
It's compromised sometimes.
It's compromised sometimes, yes, but I think that the compromise could be a key word.
Several things. I would advise you to make a small group, but enough representative from different arts, especially to have people from architecture and urban planning and sustainability, ecology, very important. To get these people on board too, not only artists. To talk not only of culture, but arts and culture. That's very important, don't forget that word, because otherwise culture is really enormous word that can mean thousands of things. Then if you want to make venues successful working, either as Mestve or this cultural mall that I haven't seen yet, we'll see it in the afternoon, you have to have the artists to design the use and the spaces. You cannot do it just by being in an office in the Ministry of Culture or municipality. It won't be successful. That's 100%, I'm sure in that. And then look for the experience of other centers already created similar one. For that, there is a very practical tool. Get membership in Trans-Europal. It's not costly. You need to be an assistant, associated member. We did that, and then they meet twice a year. Actually, next meeting is in Toplocentrala in June. They meet twice a year, and there you have 150 centers all around Europe that are created, many from Italy, that are created bottom-up, grassroots, in an abandoned buildings, and you learn a lot. And also try to bring people from municipality and Ministry of Culture to that meetings too. It brings a lot of inspiration. There are amazing examples in Europe. And it's in each country is very specific, it's very different how to make it. But at the end of the day, it's communication between two people. At least two people who and then find a common voice, which means like don't meet with the municipality or in a different groups. Have one speaker or and find the person that can help from inside, because to be there in the ministry or the municipality, is not an easy job too. I mean, they come to meetings like this one. I had one lady that was coming from Ministry of Culture, and she said, I've been all the time attacked. And after doing it 4 or 5 times, coming to public meetings and then being attacked and going home with a headache, I stopped going because, yeah, it's, I don't see motivated, I don't feel motivated to continue doing that. So at the end of the day, it's communication between 2 people.
Thank you very much. Now I will open the stage for questions from the audience. Would like to have questions, and you can address questions to Vesselin, to Daniele, to Giovanni, who is online, or to Dea. So yeah, you could join us so that we reproduce this divide in the traditional theater with like actors on the stage and the audience. Yeah. So are there any questions? I see Federica and I see Vladimir. Diana, can you help me with the mic?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is to you, Daniele, and also Giovanni. If one of you could just shortly elaborate a bit about this intermediate level that you mentioned, because when getting to know your model, this was one of the things that I found really unique and interesting. So if you can just explain shortly what is an intermediate level and why is it beneficial?
Gianni, vuoi dire 2 cose?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. There was a bad connection. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Daniel, you can try to answer.
Yeah, yeah. When we talk about intermediate level, just because in Torino municipality there are also districts, so a level in the middle between the council, between the mayor and the community. This level in our city manage some cultural activities, some social activities, and the normal life of the city. So roads, gardens, trees, and so on. In this way, the district level circoscrizione is called circoscrizione, has a big relationship in a place like us, because our center is big. There are more or less 150,000 people crossing our space every year. So that means that in more or less 18 years of life, there are millions of people coming in Cascina Rocca Franca. So it's a big center, and sometimes we need to have a balance between our how to say, our power, our strength, and the level of intermediate level. We try to do projects together. We try to do a common vision and common mission in the neighborhood, in the district, and in this way there is a very well collaboration.
Yeah, thank you. As I understand correctly, this is like what we have Pretura de sector, this intermediate level, with like Chișinău is divided in 5 parts. The problem is that this division in Chișinău is kind of nominal, and this pretura, this circumscripzione, don't have real power. They're like there is no delegation of competences from the city hall. So basically they are just representations of the representatives of the mayor. Yeah, so this is another argument for decentralizing the city and decentralizing the country. There was another question from Vladimir, I think. Diana, thank you.
Hello, thank you for your for sharing with us your models and experiences. Initially, I had this question for Dea, but maybe it could be relevant to hear also answers from the context of Bulgaria and Italy. Basically, my question is about participatory governance as such, and I will first explain why. In Moldova, I think we kind of miss intermediary levels where citizens can be can meet authorities. So we have like upper level, basically municipality and government, and then we have citizens, and we kind of miss these intermediary levels where they can talk to someone. Even municipality has no like proper department for consulting citizens. It just uses occasionally these public consultations when the problem arises, but there is no day-to-day, it's kind of missing. So my question is, what intermediary, I call them missing links, do you have, or do you think are needed so that participatory governance model would function in a better way?
Yeah, so I can talk, of course, on a general scale, but then it's always the questions of how it's to embed it in a practice, as I show you. But it's needed to be, or need to have some kind of the channel for the communication and for the exchange, because if the participatory governance can exist only if the citizens are involved. Otherwise, there is no participatory governance, you know, it's just kind of a participation that could be like a tokenism that you mentioned, this public consultation that is so appear across the many countries, including Croatia, for example, and I suppose it's the same probably in Bulgaria, here in Moldova, or probably in Italy, where basically you have like the process in which you invited citizens to consult them at the end of the process, but basically without real power and opening decision-making process. So basically, when it comes to the participatory governance, it means that you have to open the whole process and share the decision-making. Yeah? And in that sense, this kind of, it could be like a, used through the term of intermediary that you mentioned, but it's basically of coming from the part of the citizens and from the part of the public together to work on some specific subjects and the issues. And how it will be done, it really depends on the specific context. As we heard here, completely different example of dealing with this coming together and sharing responsibility. In Bulgaria scale, we have the national and the local, and then the artistic fields. And in Turin, we have this local and then sub-local, if I can say, you know, and then the social cultural engagement, you know. So how it will be implemented, it's really depends. But it should be like a platform for gathering different representatives. If I may just add something that previously colleagues talk about, like a main advice, what you can do. What I miss is because in both cases, including Croatian cases, we have like representative of civil society, formalized civil society organization, you know, primarily in arts and culture, but also in Rocca Franca, a lot of different organizations from this, let's say, social fields, you know. But however, what I don't recognize, at least in Croatian case, representative of citizens. So this is like a missing link all the times, because we can't say that if we address artists and if we address cultural professionals, freelancer, independent cultural professionals, that we basically address the citizens. So there is also so relevant voices, specifically because we are dealing with the public infrastructures, we are dealing with the public investments, which means that we have to address the public interest of citizens. And in that sense, it's really crucial to find the proper format of including citizens on a regular basis, not only as an audience, not only through their passive participation. This is what they did, if I understand well this example of having, let's say, citizens in a jury, not as experts, I suppose that they are, yeah? So it's a way. Or, for example, having like a program board advice or advisory board that was coined by the citizens. So different kind, it's not only the questions of communications, how we communicate, it's a questions of how we build relation with the citizens on a daily level. Yeah? This is like crucial. Otherwise, the whole things will be co-opted, I'm sure, on one or another way.
Yeah, I would also confirm that, and we are trying to this intermediary to create this since 30 years. It's like let's play, but then trying to define the rules for the whole evening, and then you lose any desire and energy and joy to play. That's why I said it starts between two people communicating on daily or weekly basis, and then if these two people are democratic and start to talk with the others, and they continue that way, then the play is happening. We are talking about strategy in Bulgaria since 30 years. There is none. There is no strategy, because then you try through the content to create the form, but sometimes it's much easier from the form, and then content comes by itself. So for Bulgaria, it worked that way. We are still now, after Toplocentrala and some other examples of positive, like Toplocentrala, in visual arts, in music, we are seeing that for us, having so many years of undemocratic families, undemocratic schools, undemocratic parliaments, simulation of democracy for 30 years after communism. It takes time to be really democratic. Will take maybe 2 more generations. Before that, let's play easier, smaller games that go bigger, instead of finding rules how to be democratic. But it's so complicated. It's so much in the mind. I mean, it's so complicated.
Any other questions? I see Frederica, but
Can I say just one thing about this question? It's a suggestion, is maybe a provocation, I don't know. The question is how to enter in relationships with this kind of intermediate level. And maybe why not to be an intermediate level? Why not to stay in that empty level? Maybe it's empty, maybe there isn't, maybe there is, but it doesn't work, I don't know. So became an intermediate level, and why not? Maybe if it is possible, I don't know, maybe it could be possible. In this way, you can be an intermediate body. You can be a a real unearthed, how to say, is not only an institution, but also something living inside, to be in relations, not also with people, with community, but also with institutions.
Anatol? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. My name is Anatol. I'm a lawyer and a part of the team who works on the concept on PCP. So, you know, in our local context, we often meet the so-called the lack of the political will to act or even to start the discussions on the subject. So I'm asking all of you, what was the reason or what makes the authorities to start the negotiations on your project and then to take the decision to enter into in such a partnership? If you have some, of course, answers. Thank you.
European
and Giovanni,
capital,
of course. Thank you.
in our case, European capital of culture, politicians who go to foreign conferences and meetings and see how other countries with more history in democracy work, what they do, how they communicate, and also what is their ambition for the society and political. Their own vision is very important. So it has to be become a common vision between. So it takes a communication. It takes to talk about it and find their own. I mean, the politician I worked with for 7 years, now she retired, but she's so happy she did it. And she had so many difficulties to defend our crazy ideas and to trust some artists and to defend them politically among other politicians who don't care, who don't give a fuck about it, who hate artists, who thinks that's a stupid spending of money and things like that. Now she will be remembered forever for that building, and also the people around her, after it is successful, they're all talking about our initiative, our great initiative of the Municipality of Sofia, even though it was totally grassroots project with the ideas of artists. So it is possible.
So it was a bit of a luck in your case.
I would say also political reading of the situation in a way. There is an opportunity, and
Of course there is a luck, but you have to be prepared for the luck also.
There is really different example from Croatia. It's not the same. We have already at least 10 or maybe more different examples of exercising, experimenting with the participatory governance through the model, different kind of the model, including this public-civil partnership, but also collaborative, shared resources and different kind. But in each, it's coming from the public sector and the civil sector. So in the case of Zagreb, it's happened as a result of so many protests initiated by grassroots initiatives that became so visible and in that sense so powerful that the mayor wanted to rid of them. And he thought, you know, and because this is how it works in that, with that particular mayor who stay in a position 20 years and work as a very corrupted mayor. And this is a very typical, you know, for the democracy of the third way, to have the corruption, to have creation of the political elites, to have problems with the crimes that all basically represent the deficit of democracy that unfortunately now we can also identify in the old democracy, the democracy or democratic countries of the first and the second wave, you know, when it comes to this kind of the approach. So however, this mayor, to come back to Zagreb example, he thought that before the local elections, if he finally give the protester what they want, that they will stop. at the end it didn't happen, you know, but luckily, you know, he decided 5 months before the local elections to establish this new institution after having, you know, all of them that was all the time on his back, you know, complaining, organizing different protests. So this is one example. In Rijeka, we had like grassroots initiatives that they started to share some spaces and the resources together. And then again, because of ECOC, they realized that they need basically citizens and civil society organizations active in arts and culture to be more involved in the whole process. So they made some relevant step forward. In a Split, we had completely another situation. You know, that they basically deal with one abandoned buildings in this, almost in the city of Split, that was abandoned like 30 years, never-ending buildings, huge buildings, like a house of youth that was built at the end of the 70s. And then they gave these spaces to multimedia center that started to like governing the spaces, and they realized that they don't have capacity to deal with all these abandoned buildings that is never finalized, you know. And because of the independent cultural scene also organized different demands for getting the spaces for their activities, the institutions, the public institutions that was in charge for governing all that buildings, invited all of them to start to share the spaces among different organizations. And this is how it starts, you know. But it's changed as governments change in the city of Split. So they take some step forward and then 2 backs, you know. So from time to time, but they are still there, like in this specific spaces, and they founded their own models of the participatory governance that is not institutionalized, that is not based on this public-civil partnerships as you advocate, or that's represented by Pogon and so on. And there is many other examples, you know. It's really depends on the context and the city. But this political will can be changed, you know. And you mentioned earlier that it's questions of compromise. My opinion is that we are all, as an individual, face the being in a compromise on a daily basis. Do I want to eat strawberry or not? Do I want to deal this? But the question is, you know, when you do the compromise, do you compromise? And this is the crucial tiny line that it's be easy to cross, you know. But being in a situation of making a compromise, it's like a part of our daily life, and also should be embedded in the whole structure and the system of participatory governance, because as he said, it's a dialogue between two of people. I have a dialogue with myself, and it's not easy at all. You know, every morning, every evening, I really spend hours talking by myself. And can you imagine when I have to talk with him? Oh my God, and to find a compromise about something. And you know, how it becomes when it's our mess of us.
Yes, if the connection, it doesn't work properly every time, but if I understood the question is on political commitment.
Yeah, political will.
Is on political commitment. Can you hear me?
It's okay.
Okay. As far as political commitment is concerned, I mean, consider that in Turin, all the project like Cascina Rocca Franca are somehow the results of something in between a bottom-up and a top-down project. There's always some sort of mixing of these two elements, because there's always a movement from the bottom and always a commitment by the city, the district council, and so on and so forth. Consider the example of Cascina Rocca Franca. It was, it started their activity in 2007. Nearly 20 years ago, and it was the result of policy that began 10 years before. So it's 30 years almost of this kind of political commitment. And there's always been a political commitment, and I think in the case of Turin, it's related to the long stability of center-left government of the city that gives this, I mean, long-term stability to this kind of policy. In a way, I think it's also linked to a longer tradition of the city, of an industrial city of Torino, linked on the worker movements, on the, from the worker movements to the Catholic Church, there's a strong tradition of solidarity in the city. So I think this is one of the key of our experience in terms of political commitment.
But also maybe, Gianni, also peoples and workers inside the city that have the skills to intercept calls and tenders and to transform these visions of political way in some concrete activities. I don't know, but
I mean,
I'm talking about you now.
Yes, but I talk about simply the political commitment. Of course, on the, say, technical designing side, I think that this 30 year made, one of the results of this 30 year of work is that there are a number of people, as you said, within different organizations, within the public administration that now, talk the same language and have the same skills and are able to raise money, to design new things and this kind of thing. So yeah, I think this is one of the long-term results of what we are doing.
And also maybe in municipality level, I don't know, but I think also in nationality level, politicians are people that live in the city, that has the same, that do the same things that a normal people can do. They have children. They would like to have fun. They would like to go to eat something or to stay together. I don't know. Maybe this is to consider this also these men and women not as another part, not another. They not live in a castle, and so they live. I don't know, maybe yes, I don't know. But, okay, we are talking about Torino, I don't know, maybe it's different here.
I think on a basic psychological level, in Bulgaria, something changed from 2007 when we got in European Union, that in the society, in the way it's talked in the media, that it's not this socialistic, like if you are an institution, you are a giver. If you are a citizen, you are a taker. So when you go in the position to be a politician, you have a feeling like I'm giving you. But then in Bulgaria it started to be talk, it's our money. So the people from the NGOs, they started to talk, it's our money, yours and ours together. So talking more about the common money, the common resource, and doing something for the common good is a good beginning of conversation. Otherwise, it's a parental mother and children, which is not dysfunctional in the cultural politics.
Thank you very much. I'll leave the task of summarizing the discussion to the others that will report in the evening. I would like to conclude on time, this panel. Thank you very much for your for you listening, for you engaging and participating. All the institutions that were mentioned, Toplocentrala and Cascina Rocca Franca, have websites with English sections. So if you want to know more about them, you just look for them and contact these people or contact the institutions, and I'm pretty sure that you'll get to start a conversation, and your questions will be answered. Thank you very much again, and let's go for lunch now. And I'll leave to or you announced basically where the lunch is and everything. Yeah, okay. So meet you in an hour with the next sessions. Thank you again, and a round of applause for these wonderful people.
And for the moderator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao. Ciao, ciao. Thank you.
The researcher point of view, isn't it?